To have you back on Entrepreneur Cast, the show where we break down moves that truly matter in business and my favorite subject, scalability. Today I'm talking to Jay Shah. He's the founder of Marigold Academy. It's a fast-growing childcare service franchise brand. Jay saw an opportunity in a space most entrepreneurs often overlook and built something with a real lasting impact. I would like to break it for the audience. At first glance, it's an industry that might not seem like a high growth opportunity. But if you look closer, you will see that this is an industry with massive demand, a recurring revenue, and a deep economic impact. That's one thing that I certainly read about. It's recession proof. So basically, it's non-negotiable expense for households, making it one of the most resilient industries in the economy. Lastly, unlike many other industries where profit often comes at the expense of purpose, I think childcare industry delivers both. So very happy to have you today on the show, Jay. I think you're running this business and you're shaping the next generation. So I am really excited to have a conversation on it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You were from a finance background. How did franchising come into the picture?
Yeah, no, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I do come from a corporate environment. I have an engineering degree. I also have an MBA, and I spent about 15 years in a corporate environment doing engineering, supply chain, finance, accounting. So I work in a private sector, startups. I have experience from different functions. Growing up, I always knew I was going to work for myself. I always knew that I was going to do something on my own. So, I after spending about 15 years in a corporate environment, I basically decided to go out on my own, and my wife and I became a franchisee of Dunkin' Donuts. So we actually owned and operated several restaurants for a few years, and it was a great business. It was good money. However, it was a 24/7 grind. Like, we were working all the time, and we knew that was not something we were going to keep doing forever. And when we learned we're going to have twin girls, I have two daughters. They're almost 8 years old now. But when we learned we're going to have twins, that decision was kind of made for us, and we decided that we're gonna do something else. Once the kids were born, we started looking for daycare for our own kids. We went to tour all the national brands you can think about, and we just did not feel like our children belonged there, because all the schools we went to had this very commercial feel to it, as if your child is just another number. And that didn't sit well with us. And in the process, a light bulb went off in our heads. Why don't we do this? We absolutely love children. We're a true believer in education, how critical and important it is for children to be exposed to the right concept at an early age. The industry is thriving. There's so much demand and not enough supply. All the other brands we reviewed, they all had a very strong unit economics. And one of the most important thing for my wife and I was having the Monday to Friday operation. And this does that. There's no nights, there's no weekends. So it literally checked off all of our boxes in terms of what we wanted to pursue next in our careers. And that's how really we got into the childcare. We didn't want to go franchise route. We wanted to have our own path. So we decided to acquire an existing school, which was basically 2 hours north of where we lived. So we relocated in order to do the business, and the business was thriving. And of course, we got hit with the COVID, so we had to shut down. We reopened with less than 50% capacity. We lost most of our staff. So we really had to rebuild over the next year, and we were stronger than ever before. And then during the pandemic, we added our second school, which is also thriving now. So we knew we had something that was solid, something that we know could be replicated many times over, because it's a very successful, proven model in a very successful industry. And that's what the franchising was born. We wanted to continue growing, and we felt franchising was the right path to be able to grow to the level we want to grow this brand to. And that's when we basically decided to launch our brand, and we launched our franchise concept a little over 2 years ago. So we have been franchising for 2 years now, almost 2 years. Yeah, but that's really how we got into it. It really all started with our own children.
Interesting. And when did you start with the brand itself?
So 2019, when we started our first school. We added our second school in 2021. And then we launched our franchise concept in 2023.
Interesting. I would keep this question for later, but there are two things that you mentioned, Monday to Friday. And I remember we had this conversation earlier as well, which is a unique thing about this particular business and replicating, which I'm very curious about.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, can you expand a little bit on this industry? Because I think a lot of people do not have the clarity on
Sure.
what childcare industry is and what does it do.
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for bringing it up. So we are part of a childcare industry. So we provide childcare services for children from 0 to 5 years old. As soon as the child is born, parents normally have about 3 or 6 months of paid leave from work, and then they have to return to work. So they're immediately looking for providing the childcare service, so their children are in good hands while they're working and pursuing their careers. And the children tend to transition to older classroom. They go from infant to toddler, toddler to preschool, and then preschool to pre-kindergarten. And then in the United States, children tend to attend kindergarten in the public schools. So after 5 years, they don't really need childcare. So we really cater to those children from 0 to 5 years old in the preschool space. So if you have heard of Goddard or Kiddie Academy or Primrose, KinderCare, those are some of our national competitors. So we're basically Monday to Friday, usually 7 o'clock to 6 p.m. while the parents are working. And that's basically what it is. We're providing that early foundational pieces in terms of education and development, so parents can really focus on their jobs and their careers.
Interesting. And how big is this industry?
It's pretty significant. I mean, you got a lot of major players there. You got like some of the names I already mentioned. They all have 500 to 1,000 units each.
Wow.
The industry as a whole, is approaching about $80 billion by 2030. So it's a pretty significant chunk, and it's an industry that is needed. And as you mentioned earlier, it's a very recession resistant. There's no seasonality in the business. And it's basically, a recurring revenue model because parents need care in order for them to pursue their careers. The industry, it's a pretty strong industry. Got a lot of players, and there's a huge demand and opportunity for further growth.
Very well answered. Maybe let me put it this way. There are a lot of players in this industry, as you mentioned. I'm not sure how fragmented it is. And you mentioned earlier, when we started, that you saw that there was a commercial angle in the industry. So what was the gap that you observed that you've tried to inculcate in the business?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things that we identified we knew we had to have in our school, and those are also some of our key differentiators. So as I mentioned, when you walk into some of these large schools, as soon as you walk in, they have very commercial feel to it. The classroom, the hallways, the entrance, even the teachers, even the environment and the culture. And when we toured the schools for our own children, we literally felt like our children are like dollar signs for the owners. And no parent wants to feel that way about their children. So it was very important for us that we create this home away from home feel. So when mom and dad, when they're dropping off their daughter, it feels like they're dropping off their child to their grandma's house. So that's where our focus has been as far as the look and feel of our schools, the environment, a very homey feel. Our teachers are very experienced. We don't hire inexperienced teachers. We really go for those experienced teachers, even though they cost more money. We rather invest in that. And we have a great culture that really allows us to retain our teachers for a long, long time. When I speak to some of the other childcare owners, there's two things they always complain about. One, we can't find teachers. And two, if we find them, we can't retain them.
Right.
Well, that's not a problem or challenge at Marigold Academy. Our teachers, our average tenure for a head teacher is more than 10 years. Teachers, once they join us, they stay with us for a long, long time. And we created a culture, we created the environment where they have no reason to leave. For us, childcare is not a stressful environment for a teacher. It's actually a very stress-free environment because of the system we created, which is a lot different than our competitors. So that was one of the biggest things we wanted to be different about and incorporate that into our schools. because again, we designed this keeping our own kids in mind. The second key differentiator we have, and second thing that we really implemented that we're really proud of, is we're truly known for our kindergarten readiness. When you look at some of the other schools, we don't consider ourselves as a babysitting operation. We're not here to babysit your kids for 9, 10, 11 hours a day. We consider ourselves true educators. So everything we teach in our classrooms are advanced concepts. We teach concepts that children don't even get exposed to until they're 6 or 7 years old in a public school. We pull all those advanced concepts forward and we introduce them to our children at the age of 4. So whether it's phonics, helping children how to read and write, whether it's math, science, sign language, foreign languages, yoga, music classes, we incorporate all these concepts where it really piques children's curiosity, and children are busy in our school throughout the entire day. There is no dull moment in our schools. And our objective is to get children ready for kindergarten. So everything child will do in a kindergarten in a public school, they will do all of that first with us. They even get homework. Our children even get homework because, again, we're trying to build that discipline and structure and routine. So when the child goes to public school in elementary, it's not a shock, it's a smooth transition because they have already been doing this all along 2 years before that. So that's one of our prime differentiators that I'm really proud of. And we get a ton of feedback, positive feedback from our parents that how their children are thriving in a public school because of the knowledge and the foundation we built when they were with us.
I was jotting down some points, but I love that. This reminds me actually of my primary school. I remember we used to call our teachers auntie.
Yeah.
We used to refer them as
Sure.
auntie, and it had the same concept that kids that are that young, they cry and they
Yep.
don't feel like home. So if you can foster that kind of a culture, definitely sets you as a differentiator in that business. So I love that you're focusing so much on culture. And as you said, it goes two ways. It's not just kids getting that kind of an environment, but teachers as well, because if they are stressed, they're going to pass on the same kind of energy to the kids.
We actually have a tagline, that's our philosophy, is that happy teachers cultivate happy children, and happy children cultivate happy parents. So for us, it all begins with our teachers. Our teachers are our backbone. So we go above and beyond making sure that they're happy, make sure they're stress-free, and they actually look forward to come to work in the morning. Our teachers are literally second moms to the children. And that's the kind of culture we believe in, and that's the culture we want to replicate across the nation.
100%. I remember when I was young, we had a cook and my mom used to work. So the cook used to stay with us for a long time and she was a bit cold and rude. And that impacted me as a child a lot. And I communicated it to my parents and then they took an action because they understood back then, that my kid is not going to eat, would be afraid to ask things to eat. So imagine if a cook can make that impact on your child, you can imagine what a teacher can do.
Absolutely.
Love that you're going,
We get a lot of parents who enroll their children with us and they come from some other place. And I hear the stories all the time, the child comes home with a dirty diaper, or they did not feed the child, or child came home cranky. We hear all of that, and that's just not acceptable where we are in our schools.
For sure. It's
again, the whole concept was designed with my own children in mind. What would I want for my children? And what I want for my children is probably what all the other parents want for their kids. And that's 100%. Really the philosophy.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that what you mentioned has an emotional aspect that we just spoke about. And also the other thing that I took note of was soft skills. So you're not just having a space, but you're also building soft skills for these kids, which is amazing. So you mentioned STEM and other skills. What are the skills that you really focus on and you think are absolute essential for kids?
I think this is not a one specific skill set. We want to develop the whole child. So we have a very holistic approach. So we're not just here to teach them their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, which are very critical. Those are a main component of our curriculum. We want to make sure by the time the child graduates with us, they know how to write their name. They know how to count their numbers and write their numbers. So we obviously do focus on a lot of academic concepts such as reading, writing, science, but we also we're trying to create a holistic approach here where the child also learns about kindness and empathy, right? So we put a lot of focus on that. We also have music class. We also do yoga. I know every one of our classrooms, whether it's an infant room with a 3-month-old or a pre-K with a 5-year-old, they're all learning sign languages. They're all learning second language. Every week is a different theme. So if the child is learning letter A this week, they're learning 5 new words with letter A, but they're not just learning it in English. They're also learning that in Spanish, right? So entire curriculum is built to make sure we address all aspects of child development and not one specific aspect. So while children are having a lot of fun with us, they're also learning a lot, and they're getting ready for the next chapter in their schooling.
No, I totally agree with you, because also kids at that age, they want to explore, and you should expose them to as many skills as all the relevant skills, because they're going to choose their own skill set down the line. And I love that you're also focusing on language, because it's true that kids at this young age, their brain is developing. So this is the best age to expose them to multiple languages, for them to grab the vocabulary, etc. So that's great.
Yeah, look, children at that age are literally a sponge. They will absorb everything you put in front of them, whether it's good or bad. So we do our best to make sure children are exposed to all the right concepts, whether it's educational or whether it's empathy, kindness, social and emotional skills. We try to focus on all of that. And that's why we don't have any screens in our classrooms. We don't have smart boards like some of our competitors might have, just because we think that that's counterproductive. We don't want to expose them on those. We want to expose them on reading, writing, and being social, and build those skills with other children.
I love that, because in today's age, especially, people at large have other kind of viewpoints on how to bring up their kids, and they're always exposed to screens. So it's good that you're conscious about that. What kind of people do you attract? Is it all kind of cultures? Is bringing their kids to your childcare?
Yeah, look, from a school point of view, yeah, I mean, we attract working parents. We attract parents so they both have careers, and they're truly looking for that home away from home for their kids. Just like how my wife and I felt, they feel the same way. They don't want their child to be another number. So we're really attracting those working parents. So once they drop their children off to our school in the morning, they can spend 8, 9, 10 hours at work without having to worry about it, to make sure, what are some of the stress levels that parents have? Did my child eat his lunch? Did he get a good nap? Is he being social? Is he learning the skills? Because I may not have time to teach him at home. So we make sure we check all those boxes, and that's what parents are looking for.
I think you're really catering to the kind of people that has often been neglected, and it's very true. I mean, from my own personal example, I can think about my family. My sister, yes, there's this concern, no matter which school they go to, there's always this concern that what has my child done? So I love that we're covering this aspect as well, which I had not thought of. I was going to go more into the numbers, but this is great, because this is the foundation. If we pivot to scalability and an expansion strategy now, childcare is location dependent, right?
Yeah.
So how do you scale while maintaining that consistent quality and profitability?
Yeah, look, in terms of retaining that culture and philosophy that we believe in, we're very selective with who we work with, right? So all the franchise partners we have brought on board thus far have been people who truly value education, and they truly believe in childcare, right? Because those are the must. Of course, the financial economics matter, because at the end of the day, it is a business, and you have to be able to support your OPEX and basically running the day-to-day operation. But we're really looking for the people who really value education. They want to be in a childcare space, and money is not the only end goal. And, right now, our presence have been mostly in Northeast USA, so New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We're looking to grow into Connecticut and some of the other areas. But growing forward, we are looking to expand into some of the emerging markets, such as Texas, Florida, Carolinas, Georgia, Colorado. So we're talking to quite a few people in those areas as well. So our goal is to continue growing, but growing responsibly, because it is so critical that culture and the integrity of our philosophy and our brand is maintained across the board, because that's what makes us unique. If we can retain that, then we're just going to turn into one of the other brands. Again, they're large brands and nothing, obviously I'm learning from them. I'm inspired by them, but we want to make it our own. We want to make sure that we're not necessarily competing with them. We might be part of the same industry, but we want to be standing above all the competition in terms of the care and quality that we provide to our parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned it because you've kind of carved a blue ocean niche for yourself, which is you are serving in that market, but you have something to offer which none of your competitors are. So competition becomes irrelevant in that case. And yeah, I agree. Because your entire model is built on the idea of culture, there has to be sustainable growth. And I think across franchise in general, brands that rush too much have
Right.
often faced a backlash just because they want their money driven, but then they attract the kind of partners or franchisees that do not align. And that has a huge impact on the business per se. So I'm glad that you do think about that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of our training process. We make sure that our franchisees understand to do all the things the right way, and then the financial and economics will work itself out because our model is proven to do that.
100%. So you mentioned that you're getting into the emerging markets as well. Is location picking then any issue at all? How do you pick winning markets? Is that even a
Yeah.
thing for your business?
Real estate is obviously a challenge depending on, regardless of which part of the country you're in, because we're a brick and mortar, so we do require about 8,000 to 9,000 square feet of real estate just for the indoor space. And then you need additional 4,000 square feet for a playground outdoors. So we help our franchisees to help find a site. We also help them with their lease negotiations and LOI. But we have a team in place that supports our franchisee to be able to find a site. And once they have a site, to develop it, design, construction, and of course the operations and training and marketing comes a little bit later. But we do have system in place that supports our franchisee every aspect of building their school and running it. But yeah, no, we assist our franchisees in doing that.
So if we get into the profitability aspect, what do you think is the typical payback period for franchisees?
Yeah. So look, in United States, the average franchise childcare center does a little over $2 million in revenue, in annual revenue, and they do about 20% in EBITDA. So we're slightly better than that. And the expectation is that the franchisee will build their school, and we do have lenders ready to finance up to 90% of the project. So the model is highly profitable, probably more so than some of the other industries, and it's a recurring business because once a parent enrolls their child with you, that child is going to stay with you for the next 5 years, possibly longer, because the parents will likely end up having a second or third child. So it's a model that has a very strong recurring revenue and predictability, so you can actually manage your financials better because you know exactly how your year is going to progress, and not having any peaks and valleys or seasonality in the business. So that makes it very, very viable, aspect of our business, that our franchisees can predict the revenue stream to be able to plan their future growth and multiplying the number of units they may want.
I'm pretty sure about how successful this is going to be because speaking to so many franchise brand owners, like I'm literally extracting you saying the things that most of them have said, and said that it is proven that you are bound to get success. So you mentioned right now predictability, and that's very important as well.
Absolutely.
For your partners to be able to, you can clearly show them this is what they can make. And I think that again sets this, forget franchisee, but even as a business owner, that does make it a very lucrative business
Absolutely.
to get into. Interesting. So yeah, I was actually going to ask what numbers really matter and how franchisees should think about ROI. I think you answered that.
Yeah, look, in any business, if you don't have predictability, it's very difficult to operate a business, right? And that's a great thing about our business is that you have the predictability. I mean, if you think about Netflix, it's a subscription model. They know how many users they have, what they're going to collect in revenue. Childcare is very similar, right? It's a subscription model, but it's literally on steroids because the amount of money parents have to pay to enroll their child in a school And then that parent is not leaving you unless they're unhappy with you or they're actually relocating. If their child is thriving, there's absolutely no reason for a parent to actually leave your school. And of course, in the process, they'll have second or third child. So a parent can stay with you for 5 to 10 years. And that's a recurring income month after month. And most kids just every year, you only have 1 or 2 class graduating. Your oldest kids, they'll graduate, they'll go to public school. Everybody else just kind of moves up. And now you have to backfill that one classroom that graduated. So it's a model that really gives you the predictability, and you can literally plan things out well in advance. Like right now, we're basically enrolling for September of 2025, like the new school year, and we're almost full. So again, this model really allows you to plan ahead.
I love that. This is one of the reasons why when I speak with any entrepreneur on the podcast, I want to understand, how scalability works, how profitability works. Oftentimes, we only think about tech, and that's something I mentioned earlier. We only think of tech or real estate on those kind of businesses that make money. But then you have the non-obvious ones, provided you get into the numbers, you understand how things work, and you've clearly done the job to understand what's the main driver for success. So I love that. In terms of business, what is the biggest cost driver? And how do you manage margins?
Yeah, so when it comes to operations, there's only 3 things that really make or break your business in childcare. And that's basically your top line revenue, meaning your ability to charge tuition. So we want to be in affluent markets where you have ability to charge premium tuition for premium services, because we are not your traditional childcare. We do consider ourselves a premium childcare, and according to that, we do have to charge premium prices to be able to provide all the additional support and staffing that others don't. So your number 1 is your top line revenue, and that will be dictated by 2 things. One, in the area where you're going to build your school, one, it has to have a population density. Because if you don't have population density, you're not going to have the supply and demand imbalance. And the second thing is that you do need to be in a demographic where there's the affluent area. You need individuals with a high median household income, because you have to be able to afford childcare. Childcare is not cheap, right? Especially a premium concept like ours. Parents have to be able to afford it, especially if you have 2 or 3 kids. So those are the 2 things we look for when we're looking at site selection and location. It has to have the population density and the income level. So that's your top line, right? That's one of the 3 components that you can actually control. The second component is your payroll. And your payroll will be the largest chunk of your operating expenses, because it's an industry that's driven by teachers. So that makes a big chunk of your OpEx. And as you grow, as you become a mature school, when I say mature, I'm talking about 85% or higher capacity, your payroll really starts paying off, right? Then now you can truly capitalize on some of the fixed expenses like your director salary or some of the other functions. So that payroll comes down as a percentage of sales as you increase and improve your enrollment. And the third thing, which we are very, very sensitive about, is your occupancy costs, your cost to operate at a location, your rent. So we're very, very selective and sensitive about that, because we don't want to have our franchisees get involved in locations that are not economical. So we stay away from some of the more expensive sites. And part of the reason is that we want to maximize our franchisees' profitability. And we look for sites, we do our analysis, our team does all the demographic study and research, and then we try to keep our franchisees to the optimum level so they can really increase and optimize their bottom line and EBITDA, because at the end of the day, our model is designed to support and have our franchisees succeed, because we're only successful if our franchisees are successful. So those are the only 3 things that you really can control and play with. Everything else is either not material or something you can't control, right? Your telephone bill or your waste pickup, your insurance or utilities, it's there. There's nothing you can do about it. So you really have to focus on enrollment, and you have to really focus on your top line revenue, because that makes everything else work.
Very well explained, and absolutely, I think this is very easily you've explained your go-to-market strategy, I'd say, but 100%. I think I had a question about enrollment. How do you, I know that you said that you do conduct a study to understand, predict how many people
Yeah.
might enroll based on population density and based on how affluent it is.
Yeah.
But are these the two variables that you think of in terms of deciphering the enrollment?
Look, enrollment, well, I mean, those two factors are very important, right? You need a population density. You need number of kids in your specific vicinity to be able to fill your classroom. We have data that suggests that 90% of the parents do not travel more than 20 minutes to get to the childcare, right? So it is very important that you're in your area and you have immediate population density as well as income levels within 20-mile or 20-minute driving radius. So we definitely look for that when we're looking at site. And the enrollment is a two different factors. One is when you're a brand new school, we have to really raise the awareness of you coming to the market. And we have a marketing team that handles that. They basically design your grand opening playbook that has different components, that has a paid components, such as marketing via social media and some of the other channels. That also has a component where you do immediate community outreach. So letting the community know that you're coming, this is what you believe in. And of course, at some point it comes to the point where your enrollment really becomes a factor of providing a very high quality care. And that results in referrals, right? At our schools, we do little to no marketing because our classrooms are filled by referrals. Moms tell their neighbors, their family members. Moms love to go on mommy daddy groups. And, we want them to be your cheerleaders. You want your moms to be your cheerleaders because that's what makes it an organic machine, because now you're not really having to do a lot of the paid efforts. You're really letting your work speak for itself. And now you have all these moms and the parents that really becoming your cheerleaders, and they're recommending you to basically everybody. That's what the success looks like in childcare. When you have a school that's always full and you have a long wait list, and there's people waiting in line to get in, you're doing a lot of things right.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have. And I love that you mentioned community here and referrals, because yes, this is a very community-oriented business.
Sure.
Definitely, if you're targeting a particular region and if one family is happy with their child being enrolled to the school, or how do you call it? Do you call it a school?
Yeah,
Maybe
we call
I'm
it
wrong.
school. Absolutely.
It's a school.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got the referral. So I love that this business model also has the concept of virality in it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in a local business.
Sure.
Having that concept.
Yeah.
And having people run for you, word of mouth being so it's initial brand awareness, but then followed by a word of mouth referral strategy. Interesting. Maybe I would like to have a question on you. I had this question for later, but you already answered, which was retention. How do you manage retention in this industry? And you said that it's the culture that ensures quality.
Absolutely. The staffing is so critical for our business. And this is where I see other schools fail, is that, first of all, you have to be able to find the right people, right? You have to have experienced teachers. You have to have teachers who truly want to be around children. They enjoy being around kids, right? Spending 10, 12 hours a day with children is not an easy task. If you're a parent, you know that. Our teachers have to be able to enjoy being part of our team, part of, being around children at all times. And that's why we look for teachers with those soft skills, that motherly influence they have on others, because we know that teacher is going to be a great teacher because they're going to treat all the children like their own. Right. So that is a number one thing, right? That is by far the most important thing we look for in our teachers. That's why we go for very experienced teachers, even though experienced teachers may cost you more money than somebody with a lesser experience. But we always go for that. And once they're with you, they have to feel like part of the family. We do a lot of things to make their lives easier. One of the biggest things we do, which none of our competitors do, is that we have very generous teacher to children ratios. And what that means is that in school, whether it's a preschool or a public school, there are
Yeah.
ratios that state requires. So for example, in an infant classroom, the ratios are 1 to 4, meaning one teacher for every 4 children. Where if you're a mother or if you're a parent, you know how difficult it is to even manage 2 kids, let alone one person handling 4 babies. And that's a complete burnout for the teacher. So we actually go above and beyond. We go above and beyond the state requirement. So we actually do 1 to 3 instead of 1 to 4. Same thing as the children get older. Once they get to toddler, the state requirement might be 1 to 6. We'll do 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. For preschoolers, the required ratio is 1 to 10. We'll do 1 to 7 or 1 to 8. Right? And we actually have more teachers than what we're required to have. And that provides that a huge relief that teachers need, so they're not stressed throughout the day. When you're a teacher dealing with 12 kids all by yourself in a classroom, there is no education going on. It's all babysitting at this point. You're literally putting out fires, because when you have a dozen kids all by yourself, there's not a whole lot of time teacher has once they put out all the fires. And that's when it becomes a babysitting operation. We're not a babysitting operation. We're true educators. And that's always been our philosophy. When you create this components, it makes teachers' life a lot easier, because now teachers not always stressed. She has a lot of help. We also have, we also provide a very consistent schedule. So our teacher schedules don't change week after week. So again, it goes back to predictability, right? Everybody needs to have some predictability in their life. So our teachers know exactly, first of all, we are very competitive. We're at or above market average. And on top of that, we provide our staff members, our teachers, a consistent schedule. So they know week after week after week, they know exactly what their paycheck's going to look like. Because it's very important when a lot of the staff members, when they need that money to buy the grocery or pay the mortgage or pay the rent, having that consistency helps them. And now they know that they had that with us. They're not going to want to go into unknown because they know they already have that safety and comfort zone with us. And of course, all the support they need, they get throughout the day. It just creates this very unique culture. And also, it goes both ways, because we have amazing teachers that results in amazing parents. So now the teachers have a bond with parents that they appreciate and look forward to. So it's a very holistic approach in this culture that we create in our schools. That's really what makes us tick. That's what makes our staff want to stay with us, for a long, long time, because they feel safe, they feel comfortable, and all their needs are being met. And that's really what drives this engine.
I love how deeply you've thought of with this business, because I've also been a kid, I've also grown up, and there has been a time when I precisely remember there were how many? 50 students in my class. And that was when I was maybe in primary school again. Yeah, but that's a lot. I remember the other school that I was enrolled into, where we used to call Auntie, that had about 25 students. So you see the difference? And you're right. That kind of a school had a retention rate like no other. Right. People wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
In fact, I got into the school because of my mom's best friend referring her to. So I totally can connect the dots. It makes a difference. And thanks for mentioning the teacher to children ratio, because initially you had mentioned the stress factor, but now I know why that stress factor.
And we're at the end of the day, we are a business. We're not a charity, right? So we have to make the numbers work. And because we're providing all this additional services and things that we do above and beyond what the industry offers, of course, we have to charge accordingly. So we are charging premium tuition to be able to accommodate all these things we do that goes above and beyond. And our parents do not have a problem paying for that, because they know their child is taken care of. They know their child is learning and thriving. So the demographic that is interested in our concept is now worried about having to pay premium price, because they can more than afford that, and they want that for their child. So it's a clear decision where parents are looking at us and they're looking at some of the national competitors. It's a clear decision. There's no gray line. you know exactly what you're getting and what you're going to pay for that. So it's a very easy decision for the parent, depending on what they're looking for their child.
Wow, never thought about this. We go after such obvious industries and businesses, but genuinely, I'm saying that it's interesting. It's true. It's non-negotiable for any parent, no matter what their purchasing power is. They always want their kids to go to the best school. So, provided you put a tick mark on the right location, doing all the math, if you have done that job well, be sure that you're going to make a sale. You're going to have people.
Yeah, the way I see it is that as a parent, you want the best car seat, best stroller, best education, best food for your child. And if you can afford it, you're not going to blink twice.
You're not.
You're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Love this 360-degree discussion, business-wise as well as, the emotional aspect. So my one last question to you is more about where is this industry heading? What are the opportunities that one should look into if they were to consider it?
Yeah, look, the industry's thriving, okay? This is one of the most recession-resistant industries I come across in my life, and that's one of the main things that attracted us to it. Industry's thriving. There's a lack of supply. There's a supply and demand imbalance, and parents are looking for childcare, and more so for a premium childcare like ours. They're not easy to find. They're not everywhere. So parents looking for childcare, there's a huge opportunity for growth, not only in Northeast, but across the nation. And as far as the franchisees, there's a huge demand. We need more schools. A lot of our competitors are completely sold out in the markets we're currently in. And that provides an opportunity for growth-minded investors or operators to come in and really build out this white space, because that's what we have. We're an emerging brand, and we have a lot of premium territory still available. So I think from a consumer standpoint and owner, operator, investor point of view, the industry is thriving. This industry never, ever had a down year in the history of its existence until COVID hit. COVID was the only year in the history, even our schools, COVID was by far the only year where our sales dropped and our profitability suffered. But that wasn't an anomaly. If you exclude that outlier, the industry never had a down year, and that's a strength. You can go through recession. This industry has not suffered. So it's one of the strongest industries that I personally know of. In a lot of other industries, they might be, like you said, a new shiny object, or it might be a fad. People jump in and be part of it for a year or two, and then it kind of dies down, right? Yeah. You see that in restaurant industry. You see that in sports and adventure playgrounds. You see that across many industries where they have a seasonality, or they might be a fad. They might be what everybody wants to do this year, but then next year everybody's moved down to something else. This is one industry that has never experienced that. So that's where, parents and investors can really create a legacy for their family, because this business, I don't foresee this business going away anytime soon, if ever.
100%. I love that. And one last point that I would like to make is it's true that you've carved a niche of yourself. Recently I've spoken a lot about blue ocean strategy and what does it say and how do you carve a niche for yourself when you make the competition irrelevant. And I think your example is one that we can refer to. Despite having these big players, you've been able to carve a niche for yourself. And as you said, even if that particular territory is saturated and the competitor has capped, the number of schools that they can have, because you're focusing on a premium persona, you don't have the same problem.
Yeah, look, we're not worried. Like I said, we might be part of the same industry, but they're not our competitors, because I will literally put my school next to any of their schools in the same parking lot. I'm not worried, because we know what we offer is so much different than theirs, even though it's a part of the same industry, that we actually look for that. When we're looking for sites, the first thing I ask my team is that, how many competitors are there? Because that's where I want to be. Because one, they prove in the market, the fact that there's multiple national competitors there, it proves the market.
Yeah.
Two, those parents have not been exposed to, those parents have been exposed to a subpar part of the industry. So when we go in, and once they understand and become aware of what we do, while we do it at the same price or lower than what they're paying, it's a no-brainer for a parent. You're getting much better product and service at a same or lower cost. And that's why we don't shy away from competitors. We actually want to go exactly where our competition is.
Yeah, and this reminds me of actually McDonald's and Burger King. It's geo-conquering. Actually, so what McDonald's did was, it's a bit different, but you would see they're always together, right? It's the same philosophy. You know that place, that particular area is tested, and you get there, and then you have your own uniqueness that attracts the people. So that's something that Burger King did actually. It targeted people that were in the 10-meter radius, send them messages. This was something different. It was more about location intelligence. But they received a notification from Burger King saying, come to the nearby Burger King store and avail a X% discount.
Sure.
And this was the biggest campaign that Burger King had, and it was a great success.
Yeah,
So
makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's a
that
smart
makes sense.
move.
I mean, we have national competitors all around existing schools, and they don't impact us. If anything, we get parents come to us from there, but we never lost a parent to them. So yeah, no, at the end of the day, your product and your service will speak for itself.
100%, 100%. I think this was a great business lesson, and this is exactly what I wanted, by the way, Jay. So thank you for being so precise. I love talking about scalability, profitability, because any business at the end of the day, it's about thriving.
Yep.
And how do you prove that you can thrive in no matter which industry you are? And you did that very well. So I'm 100% sure that this is going to be a great success. And
Thank you.
3 years down the line, I know that you'd have a massive brand. So yeah, really looking forward to having a conversation with you in a year. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Then thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. Well, have a wonderful day, Jay.
You too. Thank you so much. Okay.
Cheers.
Yep. Bye.